All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of Serendipity Sunday. I am Asar, also known as Greg Stanton, your facilitator. I am excited to be here this morning, as I am every Sunday morning. The word serendipity means something good and unexpected. Well, those of you who have opened the emails, having a general sense of what today's topic is all about. For those who are just tuning in because you tune in each and every Sunday morning, you are here because you just know that each and every Sunday, something good and unexpected comes forth. Well, if you're a first-time viewer and you're viewing from the YouTube channel, make sure if there's something that is stated today that resonates with you, consider hitting that like button, or perhaps you can, if you can hit that subscribe button. Along with hitting that subscribe button, you want to be aware of this, that if you hit that subscribe button, anytime I go live, you go live. That is, you have the opportunity to hear what I'm talking about. And if it's something worthwhile, you can stay in the conversation. If not, you just know I'll circle back to that. For those of you in the Zoom room this morning, I want to say good morning to you. I hope things are well and that you are excited about this day and what this possibilities this day represents. If you are part of Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living, I welcome you. For those of you who are just first-time engagers, or you may be viewing this at some later time, I want you to know that Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living is not a religious system. It is all about incorporating a lifestyle that includes principles and practices that have employed will give you the success that you're looking for. You want to know more about Oasis Spiritual Center? All you have to do is go to the website, Oasis Spiritual Center for divineliving.com. Go out there, poke around, you'll see how we get down. If you're on the YouTube channel, make sure you go back into the backside of that channel and see what's going on. There's links there where you can get the emails when I'm doing something special, get the handouts that come along with many of the lessons. In addition to that, you will also have the links if you want to be supportive of the ministry in any way. All those things are right there for you. So we're going to jump right into this morning's presentation. We're dealing with the topic of success. So as you all know, I read a lot, and I read in a lot of different genres. I describe myself as one who is a positive psychologist, one who also delves into Black psychology, ancient wisdom, particularly that down the pathway of the comedic thought. So this week I was I circled back and was looking at two books from this guy by the name of Mitch Horowitz. And the first book I was looking at is called Daydream Believer, Unlocking the Ultimate Power of Your Mind. Okay, that's Mitch Horowitz. There, I put it up there. I hope I can put it where you can see it. There you go. I will list it in my book section. In addition to that, his other book that I'm reading, I've been reading this book for quite some time. Let me see, that light glaring. Okay, good. The Miracle Club. The Miracle Club, How Thoughts Become Reality, Mitch Horowitz. Excellent book. He says, someone, I wanted to give you something that someone has said. Following in the footsteps of a little-known group of esoteric seekers from the late 19th century who call themselves the Miracle Club, Mitch Horowitz shows that the spiritual wish fulfillment practices known as positive thinking, the law of attraction, the secret, and the science of getting rich actually do work. Weaving these ideas together into a concise, clear formula with real-life examples of success, he reveals how your thoughts can impact reality and make things happen. Now, the reason why I like this guy is he just don't get caught in the fluff, but he takes on every topic that he's dealing with. He's really looking at the science behind it to see if it works and why it works. And so I really like reading his stuff. If you ever get a chance to look him up on YouTube, his name is Mitch Horowitz, Horowitz. So that's something I really would encourage you to do this week. Now, If you're here with me today, you know that I only spend about 20 to 25 minutes in the topic. But what I will do is on Monday night at 8 p.m., we do a deeper dive. And there I go into the lesson with detail. So today I'm just laying the groundwork. So I'm talking today about success. I don't know anybody that just starts out and want to be a failure. I don't know anyone who starts out and want to be a drug addict or be homeless or any of the things that we can associate in life as less desirable things to experience. Not too many people plan for those things to happen. Just as well, I know quite a few people who start off life and every day with an idea of success. But why is it that we don't have the success that equates with the ideas that we have and the plans that we have? I want to look at that today. I want to look at the formula of success. I want to look at that most essential ingredient. Just like when you look at having a sandwich, you got a sandwich is usually put between two slices of bread. And it's the most essential ingredient to that sandwich is what's in there, the content, the meat of the thing. And I've come to find that many times people are not successful because of that thing that's in the middle. And the thing that's in the middle is execution. So we're going to look at that a little bit this morning, but we all have ideas. When you just look at the general term execution, it's the carrying out or putting into effect a plan, order, or course of action. So yesterday, I take walks often. Since the weather has been kind of inclement, I have not been walking down to the arch, the Gateway Arch here in St. Louis. I live less than a half a mile from it, so I'm down there all the time. And I found some interesting things out about that Gateway Arch. Well, first of all, yesterday, the 28th of October was the 56th year anniversary of the completion of the arch. They did some spotlighting things around the city, but there's some interesting things to know about the arch. Now, I've spoken to a couple of individuals who live here in St. Louis, and many of them say, well, they see it as a shackle. But there may be something that they don't know. It may very well be a shackle, because when you look at the design, the architect designed by the architecture of this particular monument here in St. Louis was designed by a Finnish American architect by the name of Serendipity. The arch is an inverted catenary curve. You say, what is a catenary curve? That's a good question. Many times sometimes we see things every day, but we don't go into what is it? What does it really mean? So the catenary curve is the shape made when you hold a chain at both ends, okay? And he set out to emulate the geometric shape of an existing monument, which was in Washington, D.C. He decided an arch was the best representation of the gateway to the West. Now that's interesting, because the catenary arches are the strongest, or they are strong because they redirect the vertical force of gravity into the compression, forcing the press along the curve. But the interesting thing was, you hold the chain up. It talks about a chain or shackle. It's the curve you get with a chain or a shackle. And that's really interesting that they would use the catenary curve, particularly when you look at the history of Missouri. Missouri is one of the last states really to concede or abolish slavery. Missouri is an interesting place. The other thing that you may not know is the construction is 630 feet tall. Not only is it 630 feet tall, but it's 630 feet wide. It is as wide as it is tall. And the interesting thing is, I do numbers. 6 plus 3 plus 0 gives you 9. It represents the completion, okay? Not just an ending, but a perfect completion. Completion of what? That would be interesting to know what the metaphysical meaning behind it. So you say, why are you talking about arch today? One, because we celebrate it, but two, it comes down to execution. Very few people know that At the very top of the arch where the two legs meet, there is a keystone, and it's an inverted pyramid. Okay, so you have the upright pyramid, and then you have an inverted pyramid. The inverted pyramid is the keystone that locks the both pieces into place. Now, on the day that they had the celebration to put the keystone in, it took so long for them to get everything positioned, and the sun almost, this SUN, almost destroyed this monument being completed. While they were working, normally the expansion of the contraction, the heat caused the metal to contract. And so when they went to drop this particular inverted keystone into place to pull both pieces together, they weren't able to execute because they had not considered how the element of the heat from the sun would have expanded those pieces of metal at that time on that day, because it was a very hot day. It wasn't hot, but the sun was hot. It was a cool day, but the sun was hot. And where that arch is located, that sun beams right down on it. And so the metal had it had expanded. So they couldn't. So what they did was they called the fire department in, and they doused it with cold water. And the water eventually allowed for the contraction, and then they could actually drop that keystone in. That's an interesting point, but it has to do with execution. And many times our plans fail because we fail to execute them, or if we're in the process of executing them, guess what happens? We have not taken everything into consideration. And so even though we've done all we need to do, know to do, but because we didn't thoroughly plan or come up with a strategy that would allow for all of the different things, variables to come up and be addressed, many times we experience failure or a failing moment. So this morning, I want to introduce you to a couple of things. I want to introduce you to some definitions. The first thing, every plan we have, every plan we have first starts with an idea. If you're going to plan to do something, it usually was a spark of an idea. What is an idea? Idea is a formulated thought or an opinion. So it's a thought you have on something, an opinion you have on something that usually is the catalyst for you to take the next action. And the next action is the plan. Now, a plan is a strategy. In general, a plan is a strategy or a set of plans intended to achieve something. So when we have a plan, we have a goal in mind, especially if you're going to do something over a long period of time. It's usually better to have detailed plans. But usually whatever we're going to do, we have to have a plan if we want to be successful. I know I live my life around a plan. I pretty much every day plan my day. Now, I don't just wake up and plan my day. I get quiet. I get a sense of where I'm going to go, what's required of me, what's expected of me, and then I plan around that. Now, another part of a plan, a reason why we plan is because we want to be successful. The term success is something we need to look at. Okay, it's the opposite of failure. That's the easiest way to define success. Success is the status of having achieved and accomplished an aim or an objective. Notice this, having achieved an aim or an objective. Being successful means the achievement of a desired vision or planned goal. When things just happen and you didn't plan for them to happen, you can't say you were successful, because success always has to do with a plan. It always has to do with a goal, an outcome in mind. There was a story I was once told about, there was a detective who was known for solving all kinds of cases. So this particular town had called in a detective because they had noticed for the last 4 years, every spring, that when they rise each morning, all around town, there were these circles on buildings, and every building that had the circle on it also had an arrow dead center. So they were like, somebody is a master archer who operate with the ability to shoot an arrow and hit a dead target. And they were kind of concerned about that because that means that that person can actually do some damage around town. So they called this guy in, and he, kind of studied, and he went all the way around, all around the city, and he was finding that, yes, in fact, all of the targets were hit dead center. So he said he set a trap. So the next year, he knew that it would start actually on the first day of spring. So what he did was the night before the first day of spring, he set up camp. He set up an observation in a tree, an observation stand where he can see many of the buildings or the ones that was downtown. And he noticed that late that night, a teenager rolled up on his bike, and the teenager was about to do what he do, and he jumped down out the tree and he caught him, and because he had the arrows and all those things there. And then he said, he took him in and he had to begin to question him. And during the process of questioning him, he said, "We noticed that you are a master archer. Where did you pick up this skill?" The teenagers looked at him like, "I'm not a master archer." He said, "No, you are a master archer because a master archer is able to hit the target dead center every time." He says, I'm not a master archer. All I did was I drew a circle and I pushed the arrow into the circle." And so here's the thing. This guy, here's the message of this is the master archer intentionally shoots a bow into an arrow into the middle of that circle. Whereas this guy wasn't a master archer. He was just putting paint on the wall and putting the arrow in the middle. And so the difference is that a master archer is intentional and have a skill set, and he plans to do this. So there was some similarities. He was successful in fooling the people, but he wasn't a master archer. And so our lives are the same way. You can go through life and have what appear to be successes, but are they really successes, or are they just good things that have happened to you? A success is when you have planned in advance to have a particular outcome. So we want to look at those things today. We want to look at the fact that we have ideas. Our ideas turn into plans. Our plans usually fail because we fail to execute. And so it's all about execution this week. When I talk about to individuals who are in this conversation about the power of positive thinking, the law of attraction, one of the things that I find is a lot of wishful thinking going on, or it's a lot of activity that's going on that is void of true execution, a void of the true act of doing the work. So we want to begin to look at that. We want to be successful. We desire to create the lives that we want to live. Then we must do the work in order that we can live the lives that we desire. So that's really key. And a lot of times I'm finding individuals don't want to take on the work. They don't want to do that which is required of them. So let's look at plans. When we talk about plans, I use the Bible because many of us who tune into this channel are familiar with the Bible as a book of wisdom, but there's many other wisdom books that also have idioms or statements that would support the necessity of planning. Joseph was a dreamer. I mean, he always had all these plans in his head, but the word tells us there are many devices in men's heart, or another way of saying it, many are the plans of man. But it goes on to say, nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, and the word Lord mean law. The counsel are using the principles. See, those guys who built that arch, when they went to put that keystone in, they were engineers. So they understood the laws of expansion and contraction. They didn't just say, well, we failed, let's just go down and have a beer. They say, okay, we know the heat has caused this thing to expand. So what we're going to do is cause it to contract. And so they didn't do anything miraculous, but hundreds of years ago, some may say that they were magicians. No, they weren't magicians. They understood how to operate the law. And so we have to also understand that there are laws, there are universal laws that we have to employ. Sometimes we will grab one law, not realizing that there's other laws that work in tandem. All the laws are can be individualized, but they really are the most powerful when they are worked together. And many of us are not familiar with the universal laws. We may know one or two, but the ones you don't know is the ones that maybe get in the way of you getting the outcomes. So we have to familiarize ourselves with the universal laws. I know that some say there's 7, some say there are 12, but one thing we do know that there is a set of laws and that we should become familiar with them. Now, the first thing we want to do is come up with a strategy. Now, what is a strategy? We talked about that earlier. I laid it out. A strategy is basically when you have a plan. A strategy is how you may go about it, how you, what steps you may take, when you are going to take them. So knowing what to do is just as important as knowing when to do it. So you got to know when to do a thing, what to do, and how to do it. So your strategy should be kind of thought out. Many of us will have a plan and just go for it without any kind of strategy. But that's dangerous because the scripture tells us, for which of you intending to build a tower will sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether you have sufficient to finish. Not only the sufficient money, you got the sufficient level of expertise. Do you need to bring in consultants? Do you need to bring in individuals who can do this, to bring your idea to fruition? Because many times you may have an idea that you are not the one to bring it to fruition. In and of yourself. You may need to amass a team of people to do it. But at the end of it, you'll get the glory because it was your idea, it was your plan, and you executed it well. All execution is not limited to what you do. Part of execution is being able to trust that others also could be part of this equation and do their part. So just as well as Source desires us to bring it into whatever we are attempting to do. Don't try to execute this plan that you have without being in alignment with Source. So execution, one of my favorite scriptures that represents execution is found in James chapter 2, verse 26 in particular. But it says, and the scriptures was fulfilled, which saith Abraham believed God, and it was imputed him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. So to believe God is not just to say I believe, but to trust God or Source, to follow, to do your part and know it will do its part, to know that a lot of what you want to do will take that other part of you to bring it to pass. It says he's known as the friend of God. In verse 24, it says, you then, how by your works a man is justified, and not by faith only. Likewise, also was not Rahab the harlot justified by her works, when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead. So that's a big issue. When I was in the Christian conversation, many people would talk about faith, and they thought faith was just naming it, claiming it, or stating it, and waiting around for God to do it. But one of the things that New Thought teaches is that you are the God that needs to get it done. The scripture tells us, greater is he that, or it. I would like to use the phenotype he, because Source is not a male or female, but it runs both energies, divine masculine, divine feminine. But it says, greater is it that is in you than the you that's in the world. And the you that's in the world is represented by your physical self, represented by your brain capacity. But there's something greater than your brain capacity. It's something greater than your physicality. The greater essence of who you are is your spirit self. And so when we talk about execution, it talks about doing something, the ability to pull it off. And that's a big one. Many people don't go to the full extent of execution. That is the carrying out or putting into effect a plan, order, course of action. Now, here's something interesting. Who do you think is the most efficient executors, male or female? Well, I'm gonna help you out. Research shows women tend to be better at execution than men. I just found that out when I was yesterday going through looking for some facts on execution, and I came across some research data that shows that women tend to be better at execution than men. We're going to look at that and find out why. Now, that's interesting. Well, it'll be just the opposite. Most people think that men are the executors because we are so action-oriented. Well, everybody have a level of action. Men are more external and women are more internal. But we both can be equally external and internal. And when you are really moving to the mastery of who you have been designed to be, you learn to be both external and internal. You're not limited by your phenotype as a man, or you're not limited by your phenotype as a female. You understand that you run both divine energies, or have the capacity to. Very few of us do. We are really limited to the containers we're in. We define ourselves solely as what we look like. You got an innie, you're a woman. You got an outie, you're a man. But you got to understand you are a divine spiritual being. And so if you're a divine spiritual being, you got to take divine spiritual action. When we look at the cosmological story that is given to us in the Bible, or when you look at the cosmological story that you can find in the Nile Valley, you will find that it's the invisible that desires to be visible, and it has actions that it takes to become visible. And just as we use the story of God incarnate, God comes in the form of man, you and I. Each and every one of us is a representation of God or source or divine intelligence. We are a spark of the eternal flame, represented authentically as ourselves. And so source comes into this realm in the form of you and I, in order that source can impact this realm as you and I. That's how we say, I must decrease. What is the I? The physical essence of who I am. That source can increase. The God in me increases. It's the God in me. It says, I can do all things through Christ, through this Christ consciousness. And it's not talking about a historical man called Jesus. It's talking about a level of consciousness, a level of awareness. We have to understand that messenger gave us an example of what we could do. Doesn't the scripture say, greater work that you will do? Doesn't the scripture tell you that we'll have the propensity to do a greater work? And how many people do you know that are doing a greater work? Okay, somebody said why women are better at executing a woman's purpose. Okay, I got that message came across from Myrna. We're going to look at that. We're going to go a little bit more into why women tend to be, or those who are operating in the divine feminine, have a greater execution rate than the divine masculine. Because males tend to do things within our power. Males tend to do things more in a silo, and males tend to do things in a very rigid way. When you understand the divine feminine is more of a creative force, more of a collaborative force. And so we have to learn how to tap into, how to tune into that when we're going further. That's what we go and get into meditation. When you get into meditation, it centers you. It gives you the ability to bring the creative forces up through all of the chakras, crossing over the male and the female, or the divine masculine and feminine, one all the way up to that, up to the pineal gland, and then you are able to download, the fullness of some things. So when we talk about success, first you got to know this: success is completing that which you desire to do. Success is completing the plan that you were sent here. So the word tells us many are the plans of man. The word tells us in Jeremiah that I know the plans I have for you, to prosper you, to get you to an expected end. And many of us never get to the expected end. And what is your expected end? The desire you have to have success, this desire you have to live a full, joyous life. But there's a way to get there. Many are the plans of man. Many of us try to take shortcuts. Many of us try to backdoor engineer by looking at what others have done. But we got to understand, you got to make room for your authentic self to carry out this plan. You can't just pick up a book and say, take these 10 steps. If those 10 steps were taken by a person who his makeup is totally different from you, their authenticity is the driver behind it. You have to know your authentic self before you take on doing what others are doing. Maybe their idea is a catalyst for you to move forward, but always make space to show up as you, not as someone else. Nobody can be the best someone else. Nobody should be better at being you than you. So authenticity is a big part of this life in which we live. So the reason why I'm in this conversation this week, I encounter too many people that think all they have to do is name it, claim it. Oh, they don't do that anymore. Now we're into affirming it. Now we're into vision boarding it. Now all these things we do. Now these are practices that you can use towards the execution. But first you got to get a definite plan. You got to come up with a chief aim. You can't say you're successful if you didn't set that as a goal from the beginning. Success is measured by having accomplished that which you set out to do, not just lucked up. You ended up in the winner's circle. Can you tell me, did you choose to be in the winner's circle? Did you compete to get to the winner's circle? Or you just ended up in the winner's circle? Some people do that. But I want to live a life where I can tell a person how I got there. I want to live a life where at the end of the day, I can say I accomplished this because I set out to accomplish it. I don't want to have a resume just filled with things that were good that happened and weren't the result of my execution. So we're going to look at this week. We're going to look at the importance of an idea. The word tells us that God can give you one witty invention, one witty idea. How many of you have seen something that you had an idea about and you didn't take it to market, but somebody else took it to market? And you're kicking yourself in the butt and you were saying, well, you may even go up to them and say, I had this same idea. And they looking at you like they're a deer with caught in the lights. So sometimes it's just best to say, well, it would have worked if I would have had a plan, if I would have had a strategy, and if I would have executed. Many of us don't execute. We don't. It takes 63 days for a habit to become a lifestyle. But most of us don't have the discipline to do it for 63 days because we're not willing to execute. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Anything that you are attempting to do, you take it one step at a time. By inch, it's a cinch. By a mile, it's a trial. You run a marathon 1 inch at a time. So that's what I want to talk to you about this week. Join me on tomorrow night, 8 p.m. We're going to go deeper into execution. And for many of you, that's all you need to do is understand execution and put execution into action. Execution kills the old you. When you listen to hear the term execution, for many of us, it has to do with someone being end of life at the hands of the governmental system or the penal system. Execution also means ending mediocrity. Many of us are never going to be great because we're living inside of being mediocre. You make the decision. If you want to be mediocre and live a mundane life, that's cool. But if you have a burning desire to be great, then greatness is in you. If you have the desire to do great things, you have the propensity to do a great thing. But it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take planning, strategy, and most of all, it's going to take execution. Think about it. What things that you know you should have done that you didn't do? And I bet you execution is inside of that. So that's all I have this morning. Let's see. If you got a question, something you want to add, go ahead and raise your hand or type it in the chat there. Let me see what we got going on in the chat this morning. Yes, the two books was The Miracle Club by Mitch Horowitz and Daydream Believer by Mitch Horowitz. Now, next year, I'm going to start this thing called Shelf Life, Life Through the Shelf. And I'm going to review a book, probably maybe one book a month or something like that. I'll probably do it on a Saturday morning. I'm going to I read a lot of books and many people don't have the discipline or the desire to read. And sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you just have to know where here's a book, here's a source, some information, and you may not read the entire book. Many of my books, literally have thousands of books. Very few of them have I read cover to cover, usually the ones that have to do with my true area of interest. Black psychology, I usually read those cover to cover. Anything to do with spiritual science or ancient wisdom, I usually read cover to cover. But I bump up against so much information that I usually will purchase a book. Now, it's interesting. When I go to a bookstore, books literally jump out at me. Books literally call my name. And so I usually will open it up, look at it, purchase it, put it on the shelf. I may be doing writing an article or just doing a study in a certain area. Then source will say, the book is on your shelf. And I don't even know the name of the book, but it tells me what color the book is. I go to the bookshelf, I look for the color of the cover, and there it is. And I open it up, look in the table index, voila, and there it is, what I need for where I'm at that time. And I think a lot of that has to do with when I was a kid. One of the things I said to source, if you're real, show it to me in my life, show me in my lifetime. In addition to that, let me have the ability to have source documents to substantiate it. Because it's a difference between believing something and knowing something. It's a difference between being able to say, all I know is I believe, and saying, well, this is why I believe what I believe, because I know in my knower. I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman last night. Traditional religious conversation, all went back to what he believed. Asked him to substantiate his beliefs, caused him to become frustrated and upset. That's how you know that a person is unsure in what they believe. When your belief cannot stand the dialogue of question. And a lot of times people are questioning not just because they want to pull the rug out from under you. Maybe they want clarity. Like I was asking them, give me some clarity, because if somebody can get me to going back down the road I was on with some true clarity and fact and real knowledge, I will consider that I've made a detour. Okay, here somebody says, hey, Coy, good to see you. That happens to me when I go to bookstores, how I was inspired to write my book. Yes, the universe conspires with you. It works with you, and it'll get you what you need. A look at Proverbs 31 women may give a clue to the feminine essence in execution. Now, here's what we want to be careful. And that you're right, Minister Carolyn. Sometimes we don't understand. First of all, the Bible is in itself is a book of wisdom, and it's a book filled with metaphors. It's a book filled with stories, and we have to be able to decipher. Religion has a way of tying you to the Bible from the perspective of literalism. Okay, the Bible is not a history book. If it is, it's a bad history book with many gaps in it. The Bible is not to be taken literally. Many of the individuals in the Bible are not historical characters. You cannot find them. They don't know where they're buried. It's just really interesting how we have been gaslighted into believing that this book is the word of God. Well, if you open it, it's going to say Nelson or Donovan, or it's going to say King James. King James is not God. Nelson is not. Those are organizations or individuals that commissioned individuals to write this book. And this is the kind of conversation we got to really have if we want to really become spiritual scientists. We have to be willing to look at what we believe and say, am I believing it based on relationships with someone who's giving it to me? Or am I believing it based on an actual relationship with it? And I can substantiate that it's true. No. Good. Falami said, definitely, I need this message and need to execute. We all need to execute at a higher level. Not just, if you're going to own the domain that you're in, you need to be spending most of your time in that domain. I'm amazed at the number of people that spend a lot of time on YouTube, and YouTube can be the best thing that ever happened to you, or it could be the worst thing. Too many people are sidetracked by watching YouTube videos that has no content. Like I normally end my day by watching YouTube or little video shorts that make me laugh. So I like to go to bed. Usually by going laughing, I'll go through YouTube, I'll look for stuff or social media, and I'll look for things that make me laugh. And if you follow me on my page, you see I'm always posting up some of the craziest things. And what do? Make you laugh. Because on my page, two things are going to happen. You're either going to learn or you're going to laugh. Hopefully you're learning and laughing at the same time. Some of the things I put on my page is pretty painful for people. So I have to ease it by giving them a little laughter. So that's the message this morning. A simple message. I do see one hand here. Good morning, Myrna. You have the mic.
Good morning. Thank you so very much. First of all, yes, absolutely. Need laughter. There's so much going on. We need to laugh and ease and simplify all that's going on. I wanted to sort of do a twist in because yes, and I sent and I'll post in the chat A Woman's Purpose, the video that I wanted to share with you that talks to the execution piece. But I wanted to talk about the universal laws. And I'm so thrilled. I was so thrilled when I heard you say it because Spirit has been on me about picking one and doing a deep dive on the one. And all of them are connected. And so as you do a deep dive on the one, you begin to learn the others. And so the one that I picked that had been pricking in me was the law of polarity. And so I'm just really connected and learning more about the law of polarity and how I have to adjust. And so that's, masculine and feminine, that's hot and cold, that's good and evil, that's all of that, and how not to be on the extreme, but to be in that space of harmony, and bobbing and weaving. And so, and all of that, the attraction, the vibration, the rhythm, all of that is connected in the law of polarity. And so, I was pleased to hear, and yes, 7 or 12, it's kind of like the bot, it's a whole bunch of them. So just pick one and
Right.
get real good at that one, and not be so bent on all. Just you just focus on the one. As a performer, as a singer, James Brown said, "On the one." you can't perform together if you're not on the one. If everybody not on the one, then hey, then we got a problem. So just wanted to thank you and share that.
And that's important. And see, what we have to understand, I like that, we should become familiar with all of them, but start at one at a time. And many times people want to use one law because that law tends to give them a particular outcome they're desirous of. But in order to see the law works, even the scripture says, the Lord thy God is one. The Lord means the law. The law is one. There are different aspects. So if there's 12 laws, there's different aspects, just as well as there's 12 zodiac signs, but they're really all one. And each of us have all 12 signs are in us at some level. I'm a Capricorn, and so the greatest manifestation in me is the Capricorn. That's my sunshine. But I have a moon sign. Then I have houses, and inside of each of those houses, you have different signs in that house. And it's important to know that if you have, let's say, in your house, the house that has to deal with family. If you have a particular sign, you want to know how that sign relates to family. But if you really want to be well-rounded, you got to know how all the signs work together for who you are. Because each of us, part of me is Cancer, part of me is Libra, but I lean into easiest to Capricorn. My life is filled with Saturn stuff. Saturn is the tough schoolmaster. And so I can end up being tough on myself. So I have to learn how to lighten up. I have to learn how to lighten up on people. And so being a therapist, being a coach has really helped me help myself while I'm helping others. Yeah. Good. I love astrology. Yes, I'd say that's quick. Astrology, most of us don't know ourselves. And if we limit the knowing of ourselves to our families of origin, we never get to know ourselves. Sometimes you may have to find a person with a particular craft. It could be palmistry, it could be tarot cards, it could be astrology, numerology. Like I delve into numerology to get a sense of who you are. And we don't use these crafts to live our lives out, but it's like markers to let you know who you are, what you're made of. Oh, I'm a hammer, or I'm a screwdriver, and know how I could best go through life. What else do I need in my toolbox? Everything isn't a nail, so I need to have some pliers. I need to have different things to help me. And so when we talk about execution, you have to also assess, are you able to pull it off? I don't spend a lot of time on certain things. Like I can write. I know I can write because I graduated, and in order to get your master's, you had to write a thesis, and it had to be correct and all that. It took a lot. Writing takes a lot out of me. I'd like to just put my energy out there, and then I prefer to have someone who loves to come in and put things in the proper perspective. So you got to have a team and the tribe. Many of you will never be successful because you don't have a tribe. You got to find the tribe. There are some people who part of their success is to be complementary to you. And so we got to be willing to do that. Get your tribe. Awesome. Thank you, Myrna. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
Thank you. No, this has been fabulous. Thank you.
Good. Excellent. I thank you all for your participation this morning. And I'd like to close with this. If you found value in what I've been shared with you, I'm going to always make a space called the law of circulation. What is the law of circulation? A lot of times people want to receive, but they're not willing to give. And then if you're not receiving, if you're not giving, you're not making space to receive more. And so your cup will never run over if you're not operating the overflow. That is, taking what you have and getting it into the hands of others. Their source is using you as an instrument to help people bring things into fruition. So every week I do give the opportunity for those of you who want to sow a seed into the ministry. You can do that by going to the website, oasisspiritualcenter.com, and you can go to the giving platform, and you'll find you can give by PayPal, Cash App, you can give by text to give. There's a platform out there to help you transmute what you have in your hand into the ministry. Now, I want to say this before we close. Next Sunday, at 2 p.m., I will be at the La Meridian Hotel, jumping off the Place of Possibility. If you see it behind me, 2 years ago, I had an idea, and I actually executed, but I didn't get the outcome. Sometimes you got to know timing is everything. Sometimes we get an idea and we take it to market, but we don't know it's not time to be marketed. And so I just put it on the back burner, and I said, when it was time, everything was going to flow together, and it has. I have a beautiful facility. They are very welcoming. Looking forward to it, and so I'm excited about what's going to happen on next Sunday, because it's already happened. The Place of Possibility, every Sunday from 2 to 3:30, and occasionally we'll get together and break bread up in the hotel's restaurant, Prime 55. So I'm excited about that. Good. Myrna did put the link out there, Woman's Purpose. Take some time. I'm going to make sure I grab that link myself and put it in the email when I edit this message and send it back out to you. Well, it's right at the top of the hour. I'm done, and I pray that things are well with you all. I look forward to talking to you on next week for Serendipity Sunday, and we're going to